I think everybody needs a knowledge of the Bible and about God. All these fantastic places were created by? God. Yes, by God. Everything. I think children sometimes wouldn't even hear about God if we didn't have scripture in the school. Hand up if you're having...
Up until 3 weeks ago, there were 2 Protestant scripture classes. But much to everyone's surprise, half the children left to join the ethics trial.
I have to be honest and say I am disappointed. The other teacher, the teacher 6th grade and myself, we've combined our class, and so the 20 children that we have in the class are actually 2 classes, and we would really have probably about 18 or 19 in each class if the ethics program hadn't been introduced.
So it's not black and white, we could say it was shades of grey, okay?
I've been surprised by the take-up in the school. The take-up for the ethics class was stronger than we expected. Across Year 5 and Year 6, we've got 155 children. So now we've got about equal numbers attending scripture and ethics, and a small group of 8 attending the non-scripture classes.
Less acceptable.
It's been well supported, I think, by families who are keen just to have a look, and students certainly are just keen to have a look.
Who do you remember Jesus is?
The Son of God.
What can Jesus do?
While the Protestant and Catholic classes usually have the most students, Baulkham Hill's cultural diversity is reflected in the wide range of scripture classes on offer.
We have scripture groups in Hindu, Baha'i, Buddhist, Islam, Protestant, Catholic, that run right across from kindergarten to Year 6, catering for almost every stage.
Even so, parents here were still keen for their children to be offered a secular alternative, so backed the state's Parents and Citizens Association push for the ethics trial.
If you're betting money for a game and you're lying about your tactics, that's probably lying a lot, because someone could...
The more I found out about it, and the opportunities for students to practice higher order thinking skills and critical listening, listening to someone's argument, those sort of things, the more I thought this has got a lot of value for all kids.
Before the ethics trial, any child who opted out of scripture class had to go to non-scripture. In essence, a supervised free period with no formal instruction.
One of my strongest motivations for doing this was we had a group of children that we weren't engaging and we weren't able to cater for in an educational manner. So to trial something that we might be able to implement with those kids, I thought was critically important.
But in New South Wales, schools are not allowed to teach ethics or values, or even general religious education, in the same time slot as the weekly scripture class. This is due to a long-standing agreement between the major Christian churches and the Education Department. In 2003, parents began lobbying for an ethics-based option and approached Sydney's St James Ethics Centre to design the pilot.
The department and the St James Ethics Centre wanted this to be an option and not something compulsory. If you didn't go to scripture, you had to come to ethics. So it was just to provide another option for children and for their parents so that they wouldn't be sitting idly by if there were something else that they might be doing of educational value.
Yvonne's experience is typical of many parents at Baulkham Hills North Public School. She has 2 children, and up until recently both attended scripture classes.
They went to the Protestant Christian group, and the reason why I chose that was because that's what's closest to, well, my religious background, even though I don't have one. I was born in Sweden, and there in Sweden you are born into the state church, or you used to back then. You were a member of the church whether you wanted to or not. So that's the religion that I'm familiar with that, so I picked that for my children.
But this year, under pressure from the kids, she agreed to let them switch classes.
Bring your money and buy something special. The reason why I took them out of scripture was because both of them started complaining
It started getting a bit boring on the third year when they kept on saying the same stories. Like, we knew the stories and nothing was actually getting any new. So I think I prefer ethics much better.
Giving life to the widow's son. Who had that particular story?
The unexpected exodus from scripture classes has raised questions that strike at the heart of the debate over the ethics trial.
Just heard Jesus talk. Ethics is completely different from scripture because God actually isn't included in the ethics lesson. God's included in scripture, of course, because we're teaching from the Bible. And I think I would like to see all the children come into the scripture class, especially in Year 6. They're leaving and going to high school, and this may be their last opportunity to experience God in their lives and be taught about God. I feel that a lot of the ethics is covered actually in the school curriculum. I mean, if you're teaching the curriculum, you're teaching ethics. The school values are ethics.
We've got a very strong values framework. The school has 6 core values: knowledge, truth, respect, responsibility, loyalty and effort. I think it's, from what I understand of the course, it's more about the way you go about making the decisions rather than the decision you make or the content that you're making decisions about.
The schools are not values-free zones. Of course, schools have rules. There are rules for conduct in the classroom and in the playground. And more than that, they're built into the school day in the way that children are treated and expected to behave in all kinds of ways by their teachers and by their classmates. There are values built into that. But in philosophy and in ethics as a branch of philosophy in particular, kids now have a chance to reflect upon all that. Not just to learn how they should behave, but to think about conduct, to think about values, and to think about what makes one thing right and another thing wrong. I would love to see philosophy embedded in the whole of primary school, and of course there are schools in which this is happening.
One such school is Brunswick East Public School in inner city Melbourne.
Now, for the last 4 weeks, I think, we've been talking about Herbert and Harry because we have been doing human rights and kids' rights, and this has been a great...
Today, these 6- and 7-year-olds are exploring what constitutes a good life.
And then he still wasn't happy, but then right at the very, very end of the book, we see the 2 brothers again. One spent his whole life not sleeping, obsessed about treasure, and the other one looks like he's got some grandkids and looks pretty happy and relaxed. And that got us thinking about the good life.
The history of philosophy at Brunswick as primary school started in about the year 2002. And at that time the school was very interested in thinking and how we teach thinking and how we move children into the 21st century. What are the skills they need for the century that's coming rather than the century that's past?
We thought that it was really important the things that she wanted and things that she needed, because, like, she needs food and water. And
when I went and did the training and came back into my classroom and did philosophy with the kids, I was just amazed at, not that I couldn't think kids couldn't think or inquire, but that they had such deep understandings and they wanted to share them, they wanted to understand what was happening.
Because parents is like the most important. It says that he had a happy family and family's more important than money. He doesn't have to worry about anything. And he's not rushing. You don't actually need your family, but it's really, really important to have one.
Brunswick East Primary School has grown rapidly in recent years and largely attributes this growth to its philosophy program.
I think lots of parents have come to this school because of philosophy. Parents come for other reasons, but a lot of parents come for philosophy and what that brings with it and its connection to inquiry. Many other schools would have philosophy or parts of philosophy here. It's embedded in the school.